Hi everybody, my name is Keenan Wellar. I'm from LiveWorkPlay. He said work, live, play because there's work in the title, so he's probably thinking about employment. But it's my pleasure to be here today. I'm one of the non-academics speaking today. I'm a regular person that went on a journey that led me to the discovery of neurodiversity, and I'm going to talk about that today. So there's a reason I'm showing you this horrible picture of me from high school graduation. The reason being that at that age, I was just about to turn 18. I had never knowingly met a person with an intellectual disability, a person with Down syndrome, a person with autism. Zero experience, because as many of you may still experience, whatever your age is, in our school system, in our communities, we still tend to separate people with intellectual disabilities and other disabilities from the rest of us. So I went all through school and all through sports and recreation and never really knowingly met a person with any kind of a cognitive disability until just before my second year of university. Some 30 years later, how did I end up as a co-leader of a charitable organization for people with intellectual disabilities, celebrating the inclusion of people with intellectual disabilities in our community? And the answer really is I went on a journey of discovering neurodiversity. And the way I understand it, it's pretty simple, is just that all of our brains are different, all of our minds are different, and of course when you do a curve, some people are on different sides of the curve, and we tend to isolate those people and exclude them in different ways, and so we don't get to know them and we don't get to understand them. And so if we look at the history of how people with significant cognitive differences are welcomed or not welcomed in our communities, we tend to take an approach of remediation, which is we're going to try and fix that person so they can be more like us and fit in, or more recently, well, we'll accommodate them. It's okay that they're different, we don't really like it, but we'll let them be with us. And then the final frontier is valuing. When can we actually appreciate, value, respect, and learn to benefit from people that might think differently from that middle of the curve? So that's to me what it's really all about. Formal definition is neurodiversity refers to the diversity of human brains and minds, and that there's an infinite variation and possibilities of neurology. So this is just a fact, right? It's not a movement or a paradigm. It's just a fact that everyone's brain is different. So you can accept that, but not be a part of the neurodiversity movement, which is really what I want to talk about, because I'm hoping those of you who are here today, you might leave my talk and at least think about maybe I could learn how to become a part of that movement. It's a social justice pursuit that seeks civil rights, equality, respect, and full societal inclusion for the neurodivergent. So again, that's a made-up thing. What is neurodivergent and what is not? Basically, it just means people in society, we put them on a scale and we decided they're not quite fitting in with the rest of us. That's really what it is. It's a social construct. So it's not an actual thing that you can do measurements to decide about the curve. But if you believe in neurodiversity, then really there is no such thing. So does it mean there's no point at which someone's cognitive difference, it doesn't create problems and they need help? No. So I put the light bulb there to remind me of a gentleman named Robert, who we got to know many years ago. And at the time, Robert was very focused. He's on the autism spectrum, and he was very focused on if streetlights were not working. That was very upsetting to him, to the point that if he had something scheduled in his day or his evening and he saw a streetlight that wasn't working, he could not carry on with what he wanted to do with his day or his evening, because it was very, very important to him. And so a traditional approach to that would be we have to extinguish for him the importance of these streetlights because it's interfering with his ability to enjoy life. But his parents brilliantly came up with the idea, if we could just find a way that he could have a focus on those streetlights, because we know that extinguishing is really just punishing and attacking the person for who they are. We don't want to attack. It's not a harmful interest, right, to care about the streetlights. So we don't want to extinguish that. It wouldn't be hurting him or hurting anyone else if it wasn't interfering in things he actually does want out of life. So he makes plans, he gets excited, sees a street light, doesn't want to do that anymore. So what they figured out was that the City of Ottawa has a program to make sure that streetlights are functioning. And so they basically scheduled it into his life that he and his dad would go out and look for streetlights, report them to the city, and they developed a whole relationship with the streetlight maintenance team. And this allowed him to focus a certain amount of his time on something he cared about, and it took away the interference with his life. So that is, you know, the valuing approach. We're not remediating, we're not trying to get rid of his interests. We're not just like tolerating it, okay, so it ruins his day, just let him go ahead. It's trying to find an answer. So this goes on a lot, and I have a little bit of experience with this. When I was in kindergarten 4, a long time ago, 1972, they insisted a certain time of day you have to take a nap. Now, that was not on my clock, and this sounds like a minor problem, but if every single day at school they're trying to make you take a nap and you don't want to take a nap, you quickly become a problem. So at the age of 4, I became a problem. I was actually getting sent out of the classroom because I refused to take a nap because I wasn't tired. So my parents actually had to switch schools to a school that didn't force me to take a nap. Now that's a minor, relatively minor thing, although it did give me an early bad taste for school. But in today's world, a friend of mine has a 5-year-old child that's already experiencing this, where the classroom is not necessarily his top environment, and he's already being, you know, it's not a deliberate intent, but he's already being punished for being a kid. Because he would be learning much better in this type of environment. Because it's actually makes sense that a 5-year-old likes mud and likes being outside, likes to move around. And one of the things we still haven't quite figured out with our school system mostly is still focused on we got to contain kids because learning happens in containment. You must be in a desk, you must stick to a schedule. This conflicts with a lot of children, and so very early in life they can start getting punished for being neurodivergent, or really in this case it's neuroappropriate for a 5-year-old to want to play. And so these are some of the ongoing problems. Another way of looking at it is the medical model of disability versus the social model of disability. And I'll just briefly explain that. In the medical model, I don't know how well you can see that, but basically the person's the problem, so we direct all kinds of resources, we're going to change the person, and then they'll become acceptable, and then they can be in the community. And this is still very common, and just like I said with the school, the child is being a child, but they want to fix the child so that they can be proper in the classroom. That's just one example. Social model of disability, it acknowledges that the person may be experiencing barriers, but it's about changing the conditions around the person such that they can participate and that being themselves is not a problem and they're not being punished just for being who they are. So employment was in the title. I don't want you to try and read this. There's a reason I picked this super complicated slide that you possibly couldn't read. So with respect to employment, it's still very common to use this sort of a medical model approach. Say you have a person with autism or Down syndrome and they say they want to work. Put them through this formula, this assessment that'll tell you what they're capable of and what work they should do. And then theoretically this will guide the service providers and all these people into what the answer might be. How many people in this room who got a job that way? 0. Me neither. Mostly I got my jobs through people that I knew, so my own social capital, interest that I had naturally, and I was drawn to that, and the people that were hiring could see that I was interested in that, were willing to take a chance on me, that kind of thing. But this is what we kind of do to people with disabilities if they say they want to work, especially if they have intellectual disabilities. The unemployment rate is about 80% for that group. And it's not because 80% of them can't work, it's because 80% of them are not going to succeed with this formula. So, just in case I'm sounding a bit high and mighty, this is back in the day. Unbeknownst to me and others who were part of our organization, LiveWorkPlay, we were kind of practicing the medical model, but we were doing it nicely. So we experienced the same sort of idea. Well, they have a lot of barriers. It's keeping them from success in the community, so we should work with the persons, change them, and then they would be successful in the community. So we did all kinds of wild things. We started a thrift store of our own, so like a little social enterprise, and we thought, well, we'll have our own store, they can learn skills, and then they'll take those skills and they'll export them to the community and they'll be successful. This did not work. All this teaches people how to do is how to be in a construct of an agency, because it's a made-up thing, and it doesn't really prepare you for employment. And not everybody wants to work in a thrift store, so it doesn't necessarily match with people's interests in the way the rest of us find jobs. So we stopped doing that over 10 years ago, and now we're part of various movements at the local, provincial, national, international level. One of them is called Hire for Talent. We recently produced a series of videos with them this past year. And the way we promote employment now, we don't worry so much about the person, other than getting to know them and what they're all about. We focus on employers, because they're the ones that need help in understanding the value. And we've had a lot of success with this, and it's a good name that they chose, which is Hire for Talent, which is bringing to the employer the possibility that this population can actually be of benefit to them as a hidden talent pool that they haven't considered for solving a lot of their issues and challenges. One of the main issues for employers, of course, is retention. Constantly retraining staff who leave is not a good business model. And so the statistics bear out that people with disabilities of all kinds, but especially intellectual disabilities, tend to be more loyal to their employer and stay in their job and progress. And so you can actually make a very good business case to consider hiring them. And so really, it's all about recognizing gifts. One may say it is very weird what that cow is doing. One may say, that is very cool, how do you do that? And so part of this journey of neurodiversity, another way of looking at it is learning to recognize gifts, and that difference is actually a gift to humanity. And if we could bring it into our lives, it will enrich our lives. So I have a few quick examples of individuals who taught me some of that. So first is Matt. When Matt was born, his parents were told he will most likely not talk, he most likely will not walk. Matt went on to walk and talk. Towards the end of high school, he was told, you will not work. Matt has gone on to work. And so what is the main gift that Matt can bring to the world? Well, certainly determination. So imagine being told throughout your life all the things that you can't do. So his response to that has almost always been, well, yes, I can, and to prove it. So he works with Imperial Coffee here in Ottawa, and he was actually hired for a summer position. This is where his gift came into play. It was supposed to be only for the summer, and his supervisor said, I have never seen anyone try so hard to learn every single thing he could learn, and I just can't let him go. So it became an ongoing position, because he'd never had a worker that good. Another person that came to us with an unemployable label was a young man named Jeremy, and he'd been told, like, you're not going to be able to work, you have these behaviors and things that it's just not going to be possible. And so by necessity, he has a very small family, just him and his mom. His mom got very ill and eventually passed away. And so by necessity, he came to us and said, like, before his mom passed away, I really need to work, we need the money. So he was just driven by income and wanting to help. And so we kind of dug in and like, well, what really is the issue? Why can't you work? Oh, I'm very loud, I don't like to sit down. And like, there are jobs where you can be loud and don't sit down. So he's ended up at a local business called the Parliament Cleaning Group, where he's worked for, I believe, 5 years. I lost track of how many raises he's received. And that is him with his boss, Vaughn, at a United Way event where they were helping celebrate when LiveWorkPlay was received an award for supporting employment in Ottawa. But together they made an absolutely beautiful speech, and it's a wonderful partnership. And Jeremy's gift is a gift of, I'll say, gratitude or appreciation. And how that played out is when he started going out on jobs with his boss, he on his own came up with this idea of finding out who in the building was responsible for hiring the carpet cleaning company. And he went and he just went and he said, I just want to thank you for your business. I'm here with Parliament Cleaning Group, and thanks for hiring us and helping me have a job. And Vaughn started getting these calls, like he really appreciated that, and it was good for his business. So it became part of their business model to do this, customer appreciation. And Jeremy came up with that because of his own gift. My last example is Phil. Phil defies any kind of categorization. I don't know how you'd put him on a curve. He is a non-standard communicator, so he communicates a lot through dialogue from movies, which if people do not understand that, they think he's absolutely not making any sense at all. And if you take the time to get to know him, you understand everything he's saying has meaning, and it's really cool. And so I brought up Phil not only because he was someone that was also told he was unemployable and now works, but also because it makes me really sad if we don't consider this neurodiversity element in our lives. We completely miss out and dismiss people like Phil. And people who know Phil, like, they just can't get enough, and he has friends everywhere in Ottawa of the people that have taken the time to get to know him. And it's really sad for me to think if I hadn't been so lucky many years ago to start down this path, I would never know people like Phil, and people just like me are really boring. So it's really been a gift to me to have this opportunity. And so really I would just encourage those of you who maybe don't have a whole lot of experience with people on the autism spectrum or intellectual disabilities, start to think differently. Maybe you're in the checkout line and someone's taking a bit longer, or it could be a really good reason for that, and it could be an opportunity for you not to take pity on someone, but to really learn about someone's different experience of the world and how that could enrich your life. Thank you. Oh yeah.